Mr. Ralph Nevinson had become a friend of mine. He had bought 2 of my artworks. He did not, unlike the others in New Amsterdam, regard me as an eccentric crank who would get nowhere in life. One morning, he telephoned our home and asked me whether I would drop around that evening to see him. There was something he wanted to discuss with me, he said, something he was sure I'd be interested in. It was just my line. In his study, he told me what it was. The directors of his company, the Berbice Timber and Balata Company, had decided to renovate head office, and it had struck him that the office could use a few good pictures on the walls. Would I want to go with his family to the upriver station at Hood de Vries, see the timber grant and sawmill, and paint a few jungle scenes? I found his offer irresistible, accepted readily, and according to plan was travelling upriver with them on the steamer that day, when Jessie, Mr. Nevinson's daughter, began to say some rather curious things. It was a tiny part of the terrible experience that I've come to call my bones and my flute. On the way to Hood de Vries, Jessie Nevinson asked me, "What's this I'm hearing about you're going to paint pictures for Daddy's office? Is it true?" "You're unusually well informed today," I told her. "Oh, so that's how he managed to inveigle you into going up with us. I'm afraid I don't quite follow." "All right, never mind," she said. I lit a cigarette, watching the smoke shape itself into grey-blue phantoms across the narrow strip of deck before it finally dissolved into the heat-quivering air. Jessie crossed her legs and began to whistle a popular dance tune, tapping her foot against my chair in rhythm. Looking down past the rail, I could see the water rushing foamily along the side of the vessel. Swell waves fanned out perpetually toward the bank. The deck throbbed to the monotonous thump of the engines. "What are you getting at, Jessie?" I asked her. She stopped whistling and gave me a mysterious smile. Her flippancy was gone. There was, to my surprise, even a slightly worried look on her face. I was not accustomed to seeing her look worried. Then she answered, "I don't want to talk about it, because it may be only a fancy of mine. But I believe something is on Daddy's mind." "On his mind?" I said. She nodded. "I mean, concerning this trip. For the past 2 or 3 weeks he hasn't been his usual self. Mother thinks he's overworked, but it isn't that." "What else could it be then?" I asked her. "I don't know, but I feel it's something to do with this trip." "But isn't it the custom for him to visit the upriver station once every 6 months?" "I know it is, and that's what set me thinking. He paid his first visit for the year last month. By all rights, he shouldn't be going up there again until June or July." "Did he go up to Hood de Vries last month? I didn't know that," I said. "He went up, but he came back to town by the same steamer next morning. He said that Rayburn, the caretaker, was down with a bilious attack and the place was in a mess." "That seems a pretty good reason to me." "Yes, I know. Daddy is very fussy about his comforts and he hates a dusty or untidy house. But that wasn't the only reason why he came back to town by the return steamer. Mother believes everything he tells her, but he can't fool me so easily. Since he came back from that trip last month, he's been nervy and jumpy and sort of excited inside, as if he has a secret he's afraid we might discover." I smiled. "Are you sure you aren't allowing your imagination to be influenced by those magazine stories you and your mother devour?" "It's no imagination. Why did he ask me to come up with him? It's true Mother has been up with him on 1 or 2 trips, but she's always had to invite herself. He's never asked her. But this time he invited both of us. And look at you. He's gone and asked you too. If he isn't afraid of something up the river, why does he want so much company?" "But afraid of something like what? Spooks?" "I don't say that, though I've heard them say that the sawmill is supposed to be haunted. The men say they've seen an old Dutchman walking on the greenheart logs near the winch." "It's always an old Dutchman, isn't it?" Or a headless slave. Remember those tales Millie or Nurse used to tell us when we were small in Daddy's study? I've suffered too many nightmares on their account not to remember them, I replied. On the lower deck, one of the sailors, or it might have been a passenger, was strumming a ukulele and singing in a crude but melodious voice, "If You Were the Only Girl in the World." Jessie began to whistle the tune softly and tap her foot on the deck. I said to her, "I've heard both your mother and your father scolding you about that whistling, Jessie. Not ladylike." "Do you think it not ladylike?" she asked. I didn't say I did. These are not Victorian times. I'm always telling Mother that. I agree with you in that, if in nothing else. We fell silent after that, at least I did. Jessie continued to whistle. I dabbed at my forehead and cheeks, which were damp with perspiration. The chair creaked as I altered my position slightly, and somehow it was as though the rasping screechiness of the sound at once became transposed into a wisp of uneasy mist that curled through my awareness, so that I had the inclination to fidget and glance about me. I found myself frowning at the black water. Then my gaze strayed to the trees which hung low over the stream. I began to wonder what might not be lurking in the damp gloom that simmered among that glittering welter of greens. Who knew what odd creatures might not be eyeing us as we rushed by? Tiny, warped insects unknown to entomology, or some monstrosity that was neither reptile nor bird nor mammal, like the hoatzins near the mouth of the river and on the Canyon Creek. Amber orbs in a green, flat head. It came upon me that Jessie had grown silent. She sat with her head tilted at a listening angle, a slight frown on her face. As she became aware of the curiosity in my stare, she murmured, "Well, that's strange. I wonder if he's going up with us too." "Are you addressing me or speaking to yourself?" I asked her. "Don't you hear that flute? It's the same one I've been hearing for some days now in Queenstown. The fellow who plays it must be on his way up too." "What are you talking about?" I asked her. "What flute is this, and who is the fellow that plays it?" "I don't know him from Adam, but he must be on the steamer with us. I'm sure it's the same fellow. Somebody has been playing a flute in Queenstown near our house for the past week or two." "And what of that?" "Nothing," she replied. "Only I'm saying he seems to be traveling with us. Don't you hear the flute on the lower deck?" "I hear a ukulele, but definitely not a flute." She laughed. "Don't be silly, Milton," she said. "You, such a keen enthusiast in highbrow music, and can't even recognize a flute when you hear it?" At this point I observed her father approaching along the deck. He did not come aft, however, but paused amidships at the top of the companionway. I noticed that there was a frown on his face. He was smoking a cigarette, his manner on the whole a trifle puzzled and intent. He might have been listening to some conversation taking place at the foot of the companionway on the lower deck. Jessie called to him, "Daddy, don't you hear a flute down there?" He started and glanced up as though noticing us for the first time. "What did you say? What's that?" There seemed to be an unusually sharp note in his voice. He began to come towards us, his gaze on Jessie. "What did you ask, Jessie?" Jessie evidently had not failed to notice the tenseness in his manner. She said, "I thought you were going to snap off my head. I was only asking you about the flute down there. Milton swears he can't hear it." He flicked his half-smoked cigarette over the rail, if anything, tenser. "Yes, I do hear a flute. Are you hearing it too?" "Of course, I'm not deaf." She looked at me triumphantly. "You see, Dad can hear it too, Milton." I sat forward, beginning to be puzzled in earnest now, because I knew perfectly well that there was no such thing as the sound of any flute on the lower deck. Except for that ukulele and the voice singing, there was only the throbbing of the engines and the rushing hiss of the water as it foamed past the steamer, an occasional mumble of conversation, simply the sum of noises that our senses had come to take for granted. "Mr. Nevinson, are you hearing a flute?" I asked him. "Yes, I'm afraid I am, but don't let it trouble you, my boy. I suppose your ears aren't attuned to it." He smiled at Jessie, but I knew that he was being casual with a purpose. I knew that beneath this outward show of nonchalance there was a layer of deep concern and nervousness. "When did you first hear it, Jessie?" he asked. "The flute? A few days ago. A week or so, or perhaps longer. If it's the same one, of course, and it sounds so to me. Why do you ask?" "I simply wondered. By the way, young lady, did you borrow a book from my study recently?" "A book? I should think not. You know I never touch any of your books. I don't think I've even been in your study for months." He tweaked her ear. "That's an exaggeration. Don't you fetch stamps from my desk when you write, Fred?" "Oh, yes, I forgot. I did take a penny stamp from your desk drawer sometime early last week, or the week before, I'm not sure." "Which drawer was that? The right-hand one, can you remember?" "I think it was the left-hand one. The one you keep a lot of old papers in, with Dutch writing. You generally keep it locked, but somehow it was open that day. I found 2 penny stamps in a little cardboard box." "That's why I can never keep any stamps in the house. What are you reading now, young man? Something philosophical?" He was speaking to me now. After glancing at the book in my lap, he patted me affectionately on the shoulder and moved off. Jessie looked at me. "You see what I told you? Are you satisfied now he isn't himself?" "For that matter," I returned, "you aren't yourself either. All this talk about an imaginary flute. Are you both dreaming?" She stared at me. "But how do you mean? Didn't you hear it?" "Oh, has it stopped now?" "About a minute ago." "But are you serious, Milton? You really didn't hear it?" "I didn't." "But oh, this is silly. I wasn't dreaming. I heard it. And it isn't the first time. I heard it up to yesterday evening before I came downstairs to dinner. It sounded somewhere nearby in the neighborhood. And Daddy heard it a few minutes ago. He said so. How is it you couldn't?" She laughed. "You're trying to pull my leg." "Literally," I told her. "Such an occupation would in no way revolt me. But in the figurative sense, well, I'm afraid you're off the track, Jessie. Honestly, I'm not trying to spoof you. I never heard anything like a flute. That ukulele and the voice down there are all that I've heard during the past few minutes. There's been no flute." "Seriously? On your word of honor?" "Seriously, on my word of honor." It is true that, as I've mentioned, I'm a romantic. But under my romanticism, I'm a strong rationalist. And I can state quite frankly that not for an instant did I believe that any supernatural influences were responsible for the incident I have just described. I was convinced that there must be some natural explanation for the fact that Jessie and her father could hear a flute, while I could not. So without delay I told her to sit in my chair and wait until I returned. I was to learn. What I learnt, I've given a label. It's the story I'm telling. My bones and my flute.